All right, y'all, welcome back, man, to another amazing episode of the ITUTv podcast. We are back with a market update. And of course, that's being brought to you by Michael France.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hope everybody is doing well. Thanks for having me on here again, Zay, and continuously providing this information for individuals that, if they're not really understanding kind of what's going on, this gives them a high level overview of some of the major topics that are going on.
Oh, for sure, man. It makes a major difference because you guys got to understand, what we're looking at in the economic place makes a big effect on how we spend, how we trade, how we, make big decisions in the world with our kids and our families. So understanding each threshold every quarter of the year and understanding how these changes are impacting us, especially with the, horizon of all these new companies coming up. We've got SpaceX about to drop here next year. And we're coming into the end of the year. So as we close out the year, there are going to be some effects in this news before, trading starts to get slow. Those last, that third, fourth week of December, and then even that first week of January, it's a bit slower. But we do have some things that will line up things for the start of next year. So of course we got to come back and have that discussion.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a while since we've had an episode, so a lot has happened over the past few months, which we'll get into some of the details of kind of what to expect, what happened, kind of what was going on in between, some of the details, because I think that there's a misunderstanding a lot as to what's going on in these government streets, if you wish. So that's kind of like I was looking forward to this because I wanted to be able to address some of these things, and hopefully, if anybody has any comments, questions, or anything like that, get some engagement going. Drop some comments, drop some questions and whatnot, and we can get those answered for everybody. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Guys, the engagement makes it very, very easy for us to attack some of those areas and talk about some of those important topics that matter to you back at home, as much so as it does the traders right here in our community. So getting that opportunity to discuss, and most recently, guys, we've had the big government shutdown a month or two ago. So that's been a major piece in, harming a lot of lives, setting a lot of people back. I mean, almost 30 days plus, almost 60 days, right? That they've had the government shut down and people just were not getting paid during that time.
Well, there was a lot that was going on besides that, especially what the whole government shutdown was for. From the mainstream media perspective, all we saw was this side is doing this and this side is doing this. This one doesn't want to cave. This one doesn't want to cave. And it was you know, the back and forth BS, if you will. You know what I mean? Like that stuff that drives our emotions. But I didn't hear a lot of. I mean, I heard sometimes, like a couple times here and there, as to what was going on, but there wasn't the emphasis on it, which was the most important as to why. I mean, okay, the reason why I say this is because we've come into contact with a lot of things that have gone on that have gone into the mainstream media level, where context is so important. Context is so important, right? My first example of that would be Charlie Kirk, right? Charlie Kirk on the forefront would say something, right? And you see mainstream media or anybody that wants to drive an agenda, all of a sudden he's racist, he's racist, he's racist. But when you understand the context of what was being said, right, it changes the whole dynamic of everything. And people are afraid of that context because either A, they're afraid of the truth, or B, they just want to run with the drama, right?
Mhm.
They don't want to step out of that comfort zone of maybe I'm incorrect and maybe I need to sit down and listen. This is why conversations are so important, because when you have these conversations and you can grab context and maybe shed some light on something, as long as we're open minded, then we can get somewhere here. But right now, all you see is mainstream media sitting here just bashing, 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 bashing. And it does not surprise me that the animosity between people, period, is just growing and growing and growing and growing. You know what I mean? And it's because there's so much of a divide, right? That we can't get really anywhere positive because every time we try to move forward, we step back. You know what I mean?
Mhm. No, it's a big issue, man, and it's starting to divide us so much so that people don't even recognize, no matter what side you're on. just the fact that you're picking a side in this matter, especially with Kirk, is it gets amplified in other areas. Like I'm starting to see billboards with his face on it. Like it doesn't stop anything by going from side to side without having a good side of communication, being able to have that conversation and take in information as much as give. Everybody, you can always tell, is sitting and waiting to give their point rather than to take in the information being provided. So it's going to make it difficult to have a conversation on both sides. And this isn't to attack any specific party. It happens on both sides of the house. So until we're, start to get a little better having that conversation, maybe looking at the most important points that's given by the individual that could make a difference, something we can embrace and work on and build to a better place.
I completely agree, and it kind of brings up an interesting point, thinking just right off the cuff with this. It's crazy. Right before we hopped on here, I was kind of going through some reels, just watching Facebook, right? And a random video popped up. And this is going to be kind of a touchy point to make, right? But for those that know me, you know that I'm coming from a good spot, right? But I want to clarify something here, right? And I want to show the confusion on things, okay? Now, let's take for an example real quick this Charlie Kirk situation, right? Now we talked about it before, but one thing that I want to touch on for this is why context again is so important, right? Now we've all heard the pilot comment, right? We've heard oh well, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to wonder if they're qualified. So that was all based on DEI. I think that's the most high level overview opportunity that was easy for people to understand why he said that, but that was still taken into a whole different realm. The one thing that came out that I even had to kind of grasp a little bit, and what I'll say is this: the statement off rip, if you don't understand context, can be viewed as a racist view, right? But is it a valid point as to why he made the point? Yes, I can see that side. The comment that was made was that the civil rights movement was, how did he put it? He said the civil rights movement shouldn't have happened or something like that. It was going towards the civil rights, right? Mm-hmm. And when you take that phrase and understand what the civil rights movement did, you're like, pardon my French, but holy shit, like, why would somebody say that? Now, just coming from the position to make it understood as easy as possible, the context afterwards is that he said it was great in what it was supposed to be, right? So he agreed with it. He thought it was great, etc. But where it became a problem is now when you've got the excuse, right, for everything. The civil rights movement was directed towards, African American people, like, just in general, right? The separate water fountains, the separate bathrooms, segregation of schools, right? It was bringing people together and taking that away, right? But it was directed towards the African American demographic specifically, right? So now in this day and age, what do we have? We have the LGBTQIA, something like that. Like there's more letters being added to it, right? But because of what they can claim, it derived from the Civil Rights Act, right? The Civil Rights Movement. Mm-hmm. So what he was meaning in regards to this is that the reason for it, what it was supposed to be, became completely diluted. Which, if you take in today's context, in today's day and age, the first thing everybody can throw out, like, no matter what, is, oh, that's racist. Oh, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, right? And a lot of that, it takes away. This is my point to the context of what he was meaning, is that it takes away the true meaning and goal of what the Civil Rights Movement Act was supposed to be.
Welcome to Independent Trading University at ITU. We're more than just an education platform. We're a community built to help you succeed. Trading can feel like a solo journey, but with ITU, you're never alone. Our team is here to support, guide, and push you toward mastery. Technical analysis support, so you can read the charts with precision. Fundamental support, so you understand market-moving news and economics. Psychology support, so you can develop the mindset of a successful trader. We provide the tools you need to thrive: weekly live education, 24/7 community support, and real-time trading setups from experienced coaches. Wherever you are, access the education and mentorship that will transform your trading. Join ITU today and trade with confidence.
Right? Because if we're never allowed to be this diluted, it wouldn't have been that. It would have been in good standing, right? But because now everybody can claim this, that, and the other under it, it takes away a lot of the true meaning for it, which is highly unfortunate, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is a big issue with a lot of what would classify as minorities trying to ride off the back of what the Black community has fought for and built
Right.
for many years. And it's not a good sign. But what that helps show us is how blurry we can be with the lines as far as communication and conversation. To say this was the point he was trying to make, but this is how it was interpreted shows, one, we may be already going in looking to hear things wrong, right? So we've got to be careful with how we're embracing information, taking in information. But just in the same token, man, this has put, even with Kirk, has put a lot of influencers, communicators. You have Candace Owens now, hiding out and stuff like that. So look how hard it now becomes to just express our first right to communicate, to talk, have these conversations, sit at the same table, break bread and discuss without having our lives threatened, right? And that now threatens a freedom that it's very, very important to us. How do you feel about, how this affects people who do want to get out and speak, whatever side they represent and feel comfortable in that? How do we get back into a place, where that's deemed all right?
That is an absolutely great question. And the reason why I say it's a great question is because being around me as long as you have and knowing like some of the calls that I used to have, right? It was to be able to allow, like I had a call that used to be, it was entitled as free speech, right? Because it was supposed to allow people of different demographics to come together and as maybe racist or as misogynistic or whatever a question or viewpoint would be, it didn't matter because the whole goal was to break that down and make the understanding of one side or the other to come to a common ground. That's what we need as a whole. But unfortunately, the number one thing that kills people's trading is also the number one thing that kills the opportunity for that. And that is one single word: emotion. Right? As soon as I hear, like if I'm an individual that's triggered by emotion easily, as soon as I hear civil rights movement was bad, immediately, I don't care what you have to say, right? I don't care what you have to say, because no matter what, that statement was bad in itself. But then we lose out on the conversation at that point. Like, at least help me understand, because here's the thing: we don't have to cross paths ever again, right? But maybe the impact of the conversation that we have can be good enough to where if it comes up again, the thought of, hey, you know what? I had this conversation with Mike at one point, right? And this was a valid point. Now I'm seeing this as a pattern. Maybe somebody else feels that same way that he did, right? So I feel like not only do emotions, it's funny. Emotions kill your trading. Emotion kills progress, right? And all in all, it kills growth, right? As people, period. If you can't step out of your emotions and have a conversation with somebody you will never understand the out of the box or the furthest something can go, and you're literally secluded to your own box, right? You're literally living in your own world where it's only you, and you're very, how do I want, closed off, right? It's not, you're not going to be somebody who people can have a conversation with. You know, you're not being intellectual, so to say, right? Intellectual conversations require an open mind. So, I mean, it's very important. That's why I hosted calls like that. Because I mean, there's even things that maybe I don't even understand, right? Because I think about it from a personal perspective first before I try to understand. And then it's, you know, I'm guilty of it. I think everybody is. So, because again, then we sit there and say, well, this makes me feel this way. Okay, cool. It makes you feel this way, but can you understand why I'm coming at you differently? As long as you can say, I agree to disagree, hey, cool, you guys can go your separate ways. But at least that impact was made at some point. And that's the important thing, is the impact. Because you might have heard it today, you might not have heard it yesterday, or you might not hear it tomorrow, but at some point again, it will come up. It will come up. So, you know, I mean, I wish that we could be into that position where free speech is actually free speech. Unfortunately, nothing in this world is free, right? So I think also when we're talking about the context, speaking of context, when we're talking about free speech and the First Amendment, it's the most misunderstood out of the whole Constitution. I learned that back in a government class, and I never really understood it. But then when my teacher, this is high school, like this is 25 years ago almost, right? Mm-hmm. And it's impacted me to this point. She said, the reason why it is the most misunderstood is because you can't just say what you're going to say and get away with it. You might experience, just because it's freedom of speech doesn't mean it's freedom of consequence. Mm-hmm. Right? And what could that consequence be? That consequence could be a friendship on the line. I might say something that I might lose you as a friend for. Do I want that to happen? No, that may not be my goal, but it may impact you so much that you're like, hey, you know what? So I lose at that point, right? It might be consequential in the sense of what happens when you're in court blurting things out. They hold you in contempt. You're free to say that stuff. Yes, absolutely. But is there going to be something that happens to you afterwards? It's very possible, because there are certain rules and certain levels of where we need to carry ourselves as a positive human people to say, you know what, there's got to be some limitations on something. Just if we just all went willy-nilly out here going crazy, just saying whatever we're going to say with no consequences, all you would see is chaos. That's the whole reason for checks and balances and rules in place. Now, granted, not everybody follows those rules, but come on now, like they're supposed to create order in a way, right? Some of these guys take that order too far. Like, these are all different things we could branch off and talk about, but just from the basic high level, rules and checks and balances are there for a certain reason, right? Now, if you lose something emotionally, or if something actually impacts you where there's a loss, you can't be, all you can do is blame yourself because you didn't understand that, you know what, maybe I just need to hold my fucking tongue for a second here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's important to understand that there's so much power within our words, right? The things we say to ourselves, the things we say to others is going to affect in that way. But I think there should be a silver lining. Now, when you have these types of situations where your words could say some things to scar someone or say something that may rub somebody the wrong way, but then the threshold of where that relationship is then has to come into play. Like for me, I've got quite a few friends that I consider very, very close friends, ones that I can talk to about, almost anything. And these same friends, there is a expectation from me that no matter what's said from either side of us, just based on our life experiences together, how much we know each other, holds a foundational strength for me that no matter what this individual could say, most of the time, 90% of what this person can say cannot deter our relationship by any magnitude, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, we may have different viewpoints. We're not the same. People are not going to be the same. We don't have the same upbringings. We don't have the same experiences and influences and things like that. But that the things that we consider our point of view cannot shake the bedrock of the roots of the friendships that we've developed over time. I think that's a real
Right.
crucial line that has to be drawn in the sand that, hey, look, this is our friendship, this is our relationship, no matter what is said here. If you vote Trump and I vote, Biden, it should not affect what we have just because we may have different viewpoints, either politically or religiously, because we can still exist. We still got to exist in this realm together. And the better we can work together, the better we can apply these things together, is better for the future and overall of acceptance, no matter who you are, right? And that's something that lays influences into other areas and other relationships. So it's just, yes, our words have consequences. Yes, our words are very powerful, but we also have to have some type of philosophy in regards to our relationships that we're willing to uphold despite those things.
Well, that goes just with the phrase, like it, or the viewpoint of at least, like, well, if we can't have this conversation, then how strong is our bond anyway, right?
Right. Very important.
But
Very
here's the thing, like there's some individuals, like it's not just that perspective of how strong is our bond to where, I can say anything. It's not necessarily about that, because then there becomes a level of respect afterwards, right?
Mhm.
So we have to understand that you can, like, in personal relationships, depending on that strength, I might be able to get away with it once, but if I know that it's a touchy subject, I probably shouldn't be having that conversation around you out of respect, right? Or
Well, I would say, just to clear on that point, I would say that would more so be, the understanding of the individual that you're dealing with, right? So if you're not dealing with an individual who knows can handle, that level of conversation, then of course it's going to be very hard to have that conversation and be able to take that person to that place where y'all can have that discussion, because they will always bring their emotion or their feelings or, that into it, right? So some people are at a mature level where they can have certain conversations, and some are not at a certain maturity level to have certain conversations and still maintain the respect, right? And still maintain that level of clarity, but beyond, with the two individuals at the table.
right, I can agree with that. I think it's all in how everything is approached. You can approach it in the sense, like, if you cross that line once, right, and all's forgiven or whatnot, but it's something that really weighs on somebody's mind, on one of you two mind, there's got to be, I think, the open position of at least saying, Zay, look, we had this conversation. It didn't go the way that I wanted to. Do you think at some point we could have this conversation with an open mind, right? The respect, I think that's where that gray area comes into play, where it's the respect for the other individual and whatnot that literally says that bond is that strong, right? So I have actually a personal example. I think we've talked about this a couple of different times, but when we're talking about some of these situations, right? Like, I lost a friend over, strike me down. I didn't vote because I'm not registered to vote because of other reasons. Like, I feel that voting itself is a bunch of bullshit anyway. But I didn't vote. I didn't vote, and I lost multiple friends over that because these individuals said, quote unquote, not voting is like voting for Trump, and they were so against Trump, right? Now, these are individuals that are liberal Democrats. I will be the first one to say, which I don't want to sit here and point fingers, but I kind of I try not to see this, but I can't help it. And I see that the most emotion comes from that side, right? Like,
in 2026, traders cannot afford to sit on the sidelines. This is the year of the action takers, the year you make a decision that changes everything. At Independent Trading University, we build an experience that brings together what traders have been missing for years. Mindset that keeps you stable, economics that keep you informed, technical precision that gives you direction. One complete system, one community, one path to independence. From January 14th to 18, ITU Rise 2026 will take you through 5 powerful days of coaching, clarity, and next-level growth. This is your chance to level up with your coaches live, build your personal trading plan, and finally break the habits holding you back. General admission is free. VIP access is optional for those ready to go deeper. VIP $27 admission includes morning motivation with Daniel, pre-session Q&A 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, recording access for 7 days. Enjoy 7-day enrollment to ITU. Part of admission will be donated to the Grace Works program. Receive a discount on the ITU 30-day bootcamp. Digital copy of ITU Trading Guide $4,000 worth of value for $27. Whatever path you choose, one thing is certain. If you want 2026 to be different, this is where it starts. Register now at rise.myitu.org. ITU Rise 2026, the year of the action takers.
It's kind
Well,
of
let's
dangerous
let
when you look at that.
let's really look at that viewpoint, right? If I'm sitting in an environment that's mostly liberal, and I come in and say, "Oh, I didn't vote," and liberals say, "Oh, well, that's a point for Trump because you didn't vote." But then if I go into a Republican room and they feel the same way and they say, "Oh, well, you didn't vote, so then it's a vote for the Democratic Party," and now it becomes this trope of a way for people to try to manipulate you, to try to get you involved in doing something that you don't
Yes,
want to do.
right.
So that shows the level of respect they have for you. Because if I have to coerce you or make you feel some type of way by saying that, oh, because you didn't vote our side, that automatically plus the other side, that's really bad on that individual's part. And when you become aware that this is what you're working with, sometimes the good place is just acceptance. Like, yo, okay, I based on this interaction, I can see where we are, man, and it's all right. I respect your viewpoint, and we're just going to move on to the next thing. And we just can't come back to that topic because I just see where you are, right?
Basic.
And there's it's not a place where we're going to that you're going to accept my view and I'm going to accept your view and we just move on. So sometimes it's just better to just be like, hey, no, you know what? I understand how you feel. I apologize if that rubbed you the wrong way, but we'll move on to something else, right? And that saves the relationship. That saves the friendship there.
That is 100%
So
case
to
in point, though. So, like,
yeah,
that's an example, the exact reason, and exactly what we're talking about here. So,
right, right. So know what kind of room and environment you're in, and knowing the kind of people you're working with is very important. And then sometimes you just have to accept that the level of conversation you can have with others, you can't have with others, right? And that has to be understood. And then that's why you have certain boundaries and lines drawn within the different individuals just due to those things.
right.
Even when it comes to like how people felt about the government shutdown and them dragging it out or the causes that cause for problems for people back home, the viewpoints on that were very, very different. But was it necessary, right? Was it a good time to do what needed to be done as far as the government shutdown that saved us in spending in other places? It's never going to be easy. Everybody's not going to be able to be pleased. But if it's a necessity for a bigger picture, then that's something that may be worth it. So just on the shutdown that we've had to deal with, so earlier ending this year off, what are your viewpoints there? Was it necessary to go as long as we went with the shutdown? And then how does that connect, with the interest rates cuts that came in around that same time?
So this is where context goes completely super important, right?
Mhm.
So what I hadn't seen a lot of when I was talking about context towards the shutdown is why it actually happened. And just so people are aware, I don't know what everybody's understanding is of this, or if anybody even necessarily cares, right? I mean, they can hear that the government shut down. So two things. One, there was one of the two parties that voted multiple times to not fund the government during this whole process, right? And I'm talking like it was landslides. And that was the Democratic Party, right? The Republicans came to the table and said, hey, let's at least keep the lights on. And when they say keep the lights on, they say keep SNAP benefits going, keep this going, right? And every single time, the Democratic Party said no. I'm talking there wasn't even one vote that said yes. They all said there were 0 yays and all nays when it came down to it. Now, that's an important situation, number one, because then we're sitting here, in my opinion, that takes away pointing the finger at both sides. We're not looking at the Spider-Man meme where it's two of the same guys pointing at each other. We're not looking at that. We're looking at one that has to raise their hand and say, hey, I said no to this, right? And own it. They need to own it. The unfortunate side is when it came to mainstream media again, is that it was, no, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that when it came to talking about the Republicans. Thanks to Chuck Schumer. Appreciate you. But this is actually the Chuck Schumer shutdown, right? It was actually being referred to that. Now, let's understand the context of why the shutdown even happened. And this goes back to Obama days. So Obama created what? The AFA, ACA, the Affordable Care Act, right? Mm-hmm. It was known as what? Obamacare. Mm-hmm. What did Obamacare do? It hurt small businesses because it forced small businesses to offer insurance, which some small businesses couldn't, which is why they 1099 or self-employ individuals, right? Because then it's up to that person to say, I'm going to go find my own healthcare. I'm going to go find my own. I'm going to pay for it on my own. And what does that do? It leaves the control into the healthcare owner, right? But not only that, but it financially doesn't burden the business. Right, so small businesses that option was taken away, like based on certain thresholds of what you were making. It took that away and said you have to offer this. So what happens when more cost comes into small businesses? Employment starts going down because I got to pay for this, I got to cut 2 people, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's this, I got to cut 5 people. So that's why we had been seeing unemployment kind of on a rise for quite some time over the past, 12, 13, 14 years, right?
Right.
Culminating within COVID, right? So with the Affordable Care Act, it made it very, very hard for small businesses to succeed. But not just that. If you were an individual that made minimum wage, and let's say you were a self-contractor or self-employed individual or whatever you want to call it, you had to buy your own insurance. But what happens when you can't afford that? Oh, guess what? Come tax time, now it's a fine of $650 per person. So if you have a household of a man and a husband and a wife, let's say they have a kid, right? And you guys are both working together, but you only have enough money to get by, where insurance itself is not being provided by your employer, and you can't afford it on your own. Let's be real. Insurance is not cheap. In fact, it's gone up every year. So it's getting more and more expensive, period. So if you choose to go without it, now with a 3-person household, that's a husband, wife, and 1 child. You're talking about almost $1,900 in a fee as a penalty from the government that was being put into place. So people don't understand this, right? They think that the Affordable Care Act was getting insurance for millions of Americans, but it don't. The money comes from somewhere to pay for it. Like I said at the beginning, nothing in this world is free. Nothing. This podcast isn't free. But it costs us. I bought my computer. You're paying for the streaming, right? Etc. So it costs something, some way, shape, or form. And what does that end up doing? Okay, so when you get your membership, you're paying for this. Guess what? These are the lavish things that you get to pay for. It's not like that whole amount of money goes right into one's pocket and that's what it is and it's pure profit. No, it gets wrapped up into the business so business can keep going. If people understood that basic concept, we'd have a different situation, I feel like. But everybody wants something and feels entitled to something, especially healthcare, to the point to where, oh no, if I'm going to work, I have to get this from my employer. When the employer says, no, I'm not going to offer it. Well, guess what? Okay. Now we're in a bad predicament here. So businesses have been fighting against the Affordable Care Act for a long time. Fast forward to 2020, right? When Biden gets into office, because of how expensive and how bad the Affordable Care Act was, well, is still currently, I'm going to use was because it's probably going to go away. Just not now. Because it was so bad and we were sitting in a situation where COVID hit and unemployment skyrocketed, which means a lot of people were left with no job, couldn't afford healthcare, etc. The one thing that the Biden administration did well, as far as here we go with one of these things, it was like, this was a great idea, but in the long term, it was terrible, right? Great idea. They implemented subsidies that made it less for the individual receiving the healthcare to pay out of pocket, right? Sounds great. There's a caveat. The numbers that were being used as the example, let's say you have a household where it's you and a spouse and you're paying and a child, right? And it's like an average of about $600 a month, right? For healthcare. What was happening is that if you got this healthcare and it was normally $600 prior to the Biden administration, they lowered it to $400. There was a percentage that was coming off, right? So, okay, cool. You're making it more affordable for me. I appreciate it. You lowered the cost. Well, the pharmaceutical companies were still getting paid $600. How is that? Because $400 would come from the healthcare owner, the policy owner, and the other $200 was coming from the government paying the pharmaceutical companies. So no matter what, the pharmaceutical companies were still getting their top dollar. No wonder so much money was being thrown to pharmaceutical companies, right? Because the government, instead of forcing pharmaceutical companies or putting caps or anything and forcing them to charge less and make things affordable, they said, no, we're just going to pay you guys the difference. So what does that end up doing? That is a contributor to inflation because money is coming out still, right? It's coming out. It's still going somewhere. It's not like the printer stopped. It was still going, right? You might not see that dollar. It might not be in these streets, but guess what? It was going somewhere. So guess what? You got more money being pumped out. People were okay with it for a while, but actually they've been okay with it for the past 5 years. Those subsidies end December 31st, 2025.
Wow. So what does that mean for us next?
So as of January, healthcare costs are going to go up 200 to 300%.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is what we have to look forward to. So right now, when it's sitting here kind of calm in the most of like November and then in through December because of the holidays, yeah, things are going to be right around the corner. So the shutdown was because the Republicans are saying, no, we need to change the Affordable Care Act in general. We need to do something that is a lot better than what this program does. And the Democrats wanted to say, no, we need to extend the subsidies for another 5 years. Okay, so you want to keep that printer on? And I mean, what are we doing here? Like, it was a good temporary Band-Aid, but you can't just sit here and say we're going to continue to pay these guys left and right. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's making it a little more affordable for you, it's still the same thing going to these pharmaceutical companies, which drives more money to be used. It needs to have a cap. Let's be real. Things need to have caps. Insurance is such a crazy ass game. It's not even funny. But that's what the government shutdown was for. There's also a caveat to it as well, specifically affecting individuals like Californians, Texans, New Mexico residents, Arizonans, right? Specifically. What is to the south of that region? Mexico. So what do we have an influx of? We have an influx of illegal immigration.
Yeah.
Now, for those that aren't familiar with what happens with illegal immigration is, for example, I've used this as an example left and right. If prior to the wall being built, there was just a fence. If an illegal immigrant hops that fence, falls over at the top of that fence and breaks their ankle on the U.S. side, what happens? They go to a U.S. hospital. They don't have to pay anything because A, they don't have a social security number. They don't have insurance. They don't have anything. But because there's the no right to refuse at hospitals, you have to be taken. Then at that point, what happens is the hospital gets reimbursed by the government for taking in illegal individuals. So if that bill was $1,800, the illegal individual gets to walk out of the hospital, and the taxpayers have to pay the government because the government is going to cut a check for that one person, that one visit, $1,800. Now, think of the population in this country. Think of what has happened over the past few years when we're sitting here talking about immigration as an issue, right? There were millions that were just freely let into this country. Dangerous or not dangerous, not necessarily the topic here, but the bottom line is there still needed to be some form of health care for these individuals, right? So guess what? Hospitals were reimbursed for what they were actually paying or charging what these individuals were being billed because nobody was being paid for it. So the hospital still got paid. Who's paying for that? Taxpayers, guys, taxpayers. This is why I don't understand why it's such a difficult issue with immigration, because immigration, it affects every American that is paying taxes one way or the other. It's affecting your pockets. I don't care who you are. It's affecting your pockets. And I'm all about, like I'll say it a million times. I'll say it a million times after. I'm all about helping. But how can I pour from an empty cup? Right? I have to make sure that my side is straight first before I can help you. Once that's good, I have no problem helping you. But if you're taking from an empty cup, there's nothing to give.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about here? How am I going to help you? We're both put into a situation at that point.
Right.
So
it makes it way harder.
So you've got the immigration side of the reimbursements to the hospitals. You've got the Affordable Care Act subsidies. That was the biggest thing. I feel like this wasn't necessarily used, but I feel like because there's a whole revamped process now for SNAP benefits, and what was the biggest effect that people were worried about? They were worried about not being paid their SNAP benefits, which is food stamps. For everybody that doesn't understand, food stamps for the month of November. In fact, people had to go like a whole week and a half before the Supreme Court ordered Donald Trump to release funds.
Oh, hey traders. This is a quick reminder. The clock is ticking and this is the last 30 days to lock in on our current rates. If you've been on the fence, now's the time to really jump in. Here's the deal. For the next 30 days, you can enroll in Independent Trading University at the current price of $45 a month for undergrad traders and $55 a month for career traders. And we've held this price point for 3 years to give every individual the opportunity to start their trading journey for the cheapest possible price point out there. So that's right. If you head over to myITU.org and secure your spot, you'll be able to lock in at the current prices. Now here's the best part of the situation. If you're already with us, you're locked in at the current rate as long as you remain a student. That's our commitment to you. So if you want to start learning and earning with us at ITU, don't miss this final opportunity to lock in the best rate. Now we've had a phenomenal year. Many have finally crossed over that milestone of getting their funded accounts. So this is prime time for you to get locked in before the holidays, and let's make sure this happens for you. I'll see you guys on the other side.
Now, what is also being found out about SNAP benefits? SNAP benefits they're being taken advantage of. If you look at what these packages are for, welfare, food stamps, this, that, and the other, they're supposed to be stepping stones to help you in a bad spot, right? Mm-hmm. Unemployment, cash assistance, etc. Section 8 homes, right? It's supposed to help you get on your feet. What has been the problem? People have made it a way of living, right? You know, there was somebody I was talking to that was talking about their food stamps, able-bodied individual. And, you know, I asked him, I said, why don't you just go get a job? Well, because they just give me this money for free. I can eat. I said, well, do you know where that money comes from? Yeah, it comes from the state. That might be who deposits it, but do you know where it actually comes from? And when I told him it's from my pocket, it's from from my wife's pocket, it's from my mother's pocket, it's from, your brother, your wife, etc. Because it's all based on taxpayer contribution, right? Yep. You should have seen the deer in headlights look, because it was a complete misunderstanding as to where this money came from.
Some people really don't know. Some people really outside the loop for whatever reason and have no idea where that trickles in from.
Yep. So I feel like that's a third thing that was involved with the shutdown, because it was one of those things that benefited from the shutdown, because by going the way that it was, now when you go and apply for SNAP benefits, because the government was shut down and wasn't being paid out for a while, they revamped the whole process. It's difficult now to get the SNAP benefits, at least out here in Arizona.
Yeah.
And there's going to be like certain hours of work requirement, right? To get a certain amount of money, right? You might get something if you don't work anything, but you're going to get more if you work 20 hours. You know what I mean? If you do part-time, right? Yeah. So there's certain things that's like give and take. You give an effort, you can take this, right? Where the way of life that people were living on, like, I don't know how many TikTok or real videos did you see that were like, oh, I got my $3,000 in food stamps, and like I got 5 kids, and they're sitting there all eating junk food and drinking, Coca-Cola and stuff.
There was constant of those seen throughout the country.
And mainstream media wants us to see that because, again, it's emotionally driving. Mm-hmm. But when you understand that, all you have to do is understand that there are people that are out there like that. Black, white, brown, I don't care who it is. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, as a whole, this is just so we understand this, as a whole, Caucasian individuals have the most people that are on food stamps.
Benefits.
Per capita, it's African Americans, right? So depending on how you look at it, regardless, it doesn't matter. There's still millions of people that are on these benefits, but the question is, how many actually need them? Or how many of them are turning around and just using this as the way of life,
Right.
right? So I think that was something that benefited from the shutdown, because the shutdown was healthcare driven specifically.
Yeah.
But it's also on that list. Do you know how much it takes to fund SNAP every month? It costs $8.5 billion
Per month.
per month.
Wow.
So when we're sitting here now, this is going to go kind of into some of the things we're going to talk about here. The money that comes into this country, like, it shouldn't be, in my opinion, it shouldn't be on taxpayers to pay for all that shit. The government should pay for that stuff, but it needs to be in different ways rather than taxing your people, right? I'm sorry to say, but I love you to death, bro, but I can't be responsible for what you do in your life. Just like I would hope that you would feel the same way, that you can't be responsible for what I do in my life, right? So why is it that we're forced to do that, right? So guess what? You get to introduce tariffs. Tariffs, when we're sitting here talking about what tariffs do, tariffs can be used to pay down the debt. Tariffs can be used to remove the IRS. Wink, wink, because that's supposed to happen too.
For real.
So it's like, for what we do and what we produce and what we send out to these other countries, as a business, what are you supposed to do? Okay, cool. Yeah, you're supposed to pay me for all that shit, right? Well, we haven't tariffed everybody the way that they tariff us. So really, at that point, every country's getting all of our product at a discount. It's been a Black Friday sale for God knows how long. You know what I mean? Because when you sit here and you look at how the dairy products into Canada, right? So let's understand. I know we did a episode where we talked about tariffs. Let's go over this again here at a high level. When does a tariff get applied? It applies when a product leaves a country, comes into another, and it's at the customs transition, right?
Okay.
So, and when that happens, if you've ever picked anything up from customs, you are responsible as the receiver for that cost, right? So when we would send dairy products in mass up to Canada, they didn't have to pay anything. But when they would send stuff, or no, other way around, sorry. We would be tariffed on their dairy products, milk, right? Butter, cheese, right? We would get tariffed, but we weren't tariffing anything on the way out for what they got from us, which I think is like aluminum and stuff like that. Do you know what that percentage was that they would actually reach as our tariff, as what they charged us? So depending on what was coming into their country as far as the volume goes, it reached at certain points, it reached 145%.
Wow. So he's still barely not even scratching the surface with a lot of these tariffs that he's even putting out there. That seem a lot.
Right. And all it does is just the whole goal, this we talked about this on the last episode, was what is the whole goal for tariffs? Well, okay, if you don't want to pay the tariffs, buy local, right? That gives jobs to Americans because now you have a demand for a product in America, in this case specifically, right? So
Right.
You're forced to either build and start manufacturing on U.S. soil, employing U.S. citizens, and thus stimulating the economy with work and financial gain. Not a bad thing, right? That's why we're seeing, what was it, $1.5 trillion, I want to say, that's coming into America with new businesses. Like, what is it? I think Apple's opening here.
Yeah.
A couple other companies. They decided
come back and build my home.
And that's what I was talking about on the last episode, where I was like, I think they're great. Okay, so we're going to see an increase in some of our prices because as they raise their tariffs to us, right, because we're now implementing to them, Like, what was it? Avocados were heavily tariffed. Well, you're either going to see less of the supply because of based on affordability, or what's going to happen is you're going to see the prices going up. And we've seen prices go up left and right. And I did say at that time, there's going to be a dark age here where we're going to feel a little bit of heat. But once these manufacturing businesses get up and running, once we start doing things agriculturally here in the U.S., like removing the protections of these lands for oil drilling and agricultural reasons, right? Those are great things. Those are great things. Unfortunately, could it harm the environment? I mean, it's possible, right? But I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? I mean, there's reasons why these things are here. If we're going to sit here and protect everything, we can't claim to be the richest country in the world, right?
Right.
So, at that point, like, go drill, do what you got to do, right? So, by doing that, we're going to see the end result actually be a lot better. But the tariffs are supposed to be in place for good and positive reasons. If they can get rid of the IRS, because we pay taxes on the product already, right? Why are we taxed out of our paycheck? So you're taxed on your paycheck, you're taxed when you spend it, and then at the very end of the year, you have to claim all that, and then you could be possibly taxed for a third time.
Right.
So
Now,
what are we talking about here?
I'm glad you brought this up, because on the horizon, we've got a few things Trump's talking about as regards to both of these are concerned. So he wants to, one, use tariffs to substantially drop the national debt, and then also looking at getting rid of income tax altogether.
Right.
How does that look for being a substantial change as we go into these years forward?
So the removal of the income tax and the IRS was also on the docket of removing the Department of Education, right? The federal level, it's not the state level, it's removing the extra hand in the cookie jar of the federal level. I want people to understand that, because they're like, oh, Department of Education was going away. No. Just the federal level, guys. Like, this is important. Again, what's the word of the day? Context.
Context,
right?
So get the detail and before you jump to conclusion on it.
Exactly. So this is also part of the Nasara-Jassara plan. So again, if anybody who's watching this that hadn't watched the last one, or if you're watching this and you did watch the last one, go research the Nasara-Jassara plan, right? So it's based on national economics and global economics, right? There's certain things that are going to change. Now, there's also things that need to be understood as well as to why things are being ran the way that they are. What's the word that everybody continues to use for our government? What type of government do we have? We have a democracy. Actually, no, we don't. People need to stop using that word and throwing it out everywhere, because even in our Pledge of Allegiance, what is America called? And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are a republic, guys. We are a republic. We are not a democracy. People need to understand that. And I feel like that when I hear that conversation, it brainwashes. Those are people that have not looked into what everything really is. If people can sit here and disagree with me right now, go do your research. Okay. So in a democracy, in a republic, the republic is owned by the people with the government as a service. That is what we are, guys. The IRS should not control literally everything. So, like, what are we talking about here? And they do.
They give them a lot of power. And you got to think of the mind game that comes into that, because the news pushes a lot of that. You'll hear repeated over and over, American democracy, or we're operating in democracy. You'll see liberals talk a lot about being in a democracy, in the sense of, if I hear it enough and get them to believe it enough, even though in true reality it's a republic, you know what I mean? That's where that manipulation and all that comes in, and get your mind to think something else because it's heard it in repetition.
that part. And this is going to kind of lead into a topic that we didn't even talk about as a bullet point through the through the syllabus of what we were going to talk about here today. It just popped into my mind now. So for those that are like, hey, is this live or do they practice? No, this is live because I literally just thought about this right now, right? So one thing that also needs to be understood, and I hope that this becomes very educational or at least drives people to do their own educational deep dive into the research. We're actually, as far as our government goes, we're in a socialist government, right? What happens in a socialist government compared to capitalism? Socialist government has regulations from the government, right? Now, here's the funny thing. Perfect example of what this actually does when I say the government has their hand in it. If we weren't a socialist government based on a democracy, if we were a actual true republic where capitalism takes place, socialism wouldn't be here. Socialism is the gateway to what? And why is that? Because there's government control, right? The government control. Yeah. So what people need to say, and I feel like they don't understand. There are some people that make valid points that I see, when looking through social media or seeing any of these arguments left and right that go on the internet. There are some people that are educated and make valid points towards socialism, right? But we had a perfect example of what it was like with the government interfering. And that was the fact that what happened? Everybody was worried about where they were going to get their next plate of food when the SNAP benefits stopped. So the government controls their money. The government controls their food. Guess what? Welcome to socialism. What happens in capitalism? Oh, you know what? I want to go make my own money. I want to go sell this. I want to make my own business. So guess what? At that point, you can afford your groceries and your food, whether the government gives it to you or not.
Yeah.
So can we understand? Like, I hope that whoever's seeing this understands the difference between that, right? What's scary? What is scary right now? This I don't know if you still need to talk about the IRS or any of these things, but what's very scary is that the city of New York just elected a communist governor. So I don't know. Only time is going to tell because these guys met. Trump and damn it, I talked about this so much I drove it out of my mind. I forgot the guy's name. Hang on. Or sorry, I think it's the New York mayor. No, that's Eric Adams. Oh, Mamdani. Yeah. Zoran Mamdani. So he was elected 111th mayor of New York City, right? Mamdani has already said he wants to bring Sharia law into play. You know what Sharia law is? Yeah, you might want to go brush up on your Islam there. Sharia law requires women to be completely covered up. Sharia law requires...
He's trying to do that in New York?
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Wow.
Here's the thing. Now, I want people to consider the mindset that we've talked about here somewhat and the way of life, right?
Yeah.
And people take advantage of certain programs, this, that, and the other. And what this man ran on his campaign was government-controlled grocery stores. Okay. Free public transportation, which includes subways, which includes transit bus systems, right? And he wants real estate to be more affordable, right? Oh my gosh, would we ever love that if that were the case? But what is not the word of the day, but what has been the theme so far? Nothing is free in this world, right? So when you say free transit based on subway and bus, who's going to pay for that? Someone's got to pay for the maintenance. Someone's got to pay for the upkeep. Someone's got to pay for these
Coming back
people's
to
salaries.
taxes. Coming back to get out of tax pot. Coming back to get out that tax pot.
Keep that in mind. So how does real estate force to come down in price if we're not in a, what do they call it? I forgot the term for it. But in this, in his communist view, by lowering real estate, who's going to pay for the difference? Right?
Right.
So the government, right? The government controlled grocery stores. Okay, so it costs this much to bring this food product in. Oh, free enterprise. That's what I meant. We're in a free enterprise type of world right here when it comes to our money. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you can go get a loan and there's competition between negotiations, right? It's you as a seller versus multiple buyers to a home. Whoever pays the top dollar gets that home, right? So if you want to have a government controlled grocery store, again, avocados are being taxed, but yet you want to sell them at a lower price because you want to control the price. Who's going to pay for the difference? All right. So we're on the same path right here where we're sitting here in all these questions. Who's going to pay the difference? So the plan is to add an extra 2% tax to those that make anywhere to $1 million plus. Okay. So Zay, let me ask you this flat out. You make $1 million a year. Now, there's thousands of them in New York, right? Wall Street is there, which I got a funny thing about that. And then we talked about it on Discord, but I'll mention it here. So if you're a millionaire and you live in New York and you just find out you're going to pay an extra 2% tax than everybody else because you're going to be paying for all this extra shit, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Hey, look, there's one or two things happening. I'm either leaving or my lawyers will find a way for me to get up out of the tax.
Boom. So these guys are saying, scrap that lawyer thing. We're leaving.
Right.
Any idea as to where they're going? There's 2 states.
Florida's got to be one. And man, what are the possibilities for the other? Texas?
Texas. Both of them, yes.
Yep.
Majority of them are going down to Florida. But yes, it's because it centers around no taxes, right? So this is what I want people to understand as well as what happens when this gets implemented. Oh, it's only 2%. Is it? So when you're sitting there making $1 million, right? You're going to be paying your certain bracket. You're going to be paying like of your taxes, right? Already. You're going to be paying for insurance. You're going to be paying for, which is, insurance is a very hefty cost these days, right? With all of the expenses, now throw a 2% tax on there, and it actually calculates out to almost a 10% increase. Because if you sit there and you take 2% of $1 million,
20,000, correct.
20,000, right?
Yep.
So by the time you get done with all of your expenses, you're left with a bottom line. Mind you, you're paying an extra almost 20, depending on what your rate is. That's minimum, right? With what you're paying out, you're going to be left with just over maybe $400,000, right? Now add that extra 20, 30,000, whatever it is, that's going to be, on top of everything. Yeah, you're almost at a 10% difference now. It's not 2%, guys. It's 2% on the forefront, but you're not taking into the expenses that these guys pay as millionaires. They're already in different tax brackets. Sure, you can go use that money and go buy real estate and filter it and avoid certain income taxes. But bottom line is that there's a certain amount that they're already paying. So by moving to Florida with no income tax, the calculation came out to actually a positive $130,000 into that person's pocket. That's an annual salary for a damn good job, right? Just because this guy wants to add this tax in and you decide to move, that's $130,000 a year that you're making more just from leaving New York.
Wow.
That's a no-brainer.
Right. From their position, I'm walking out the door. There's no reason
Right.
to stay around and try to strike that battle.
Stick with that thought. The millionaires leave. This program is still in place. What happens?
It's going to fall on the next person down.
Exactly. Now we're talking about the upper class. Now you're talking about, middle to upper that are actually struggling. And now this extra 2% tax falls on them. Right? Now these people lose their job. They can't afford to live. They lose their home. They're homeless. Right? Whatever it may be. It leads to that because you can't afford to live even with an extra 2% tax. That's a very hefty tax, in all honesty, when you're talking about large numbers of annual income. So those people end up either moving, just like the millionaires, or they just can't pay because they don't have their job anymore. So who does it fall down to now? Now you're taxing the lower class, and that lower class is already in deep shit.
Yep.
So the analogy that was given is that literally New York is going to turn into what we've seen on the big screen as Gotham City, ran by criminals. Because what's going to end up happening? Let's just take aesthetics, right? Because if people are going to be having free train rides and free bus rides, right? Are you going to get people to even drive those things? Probably not. But let's say you get somebody that does. What is that going to end up being with free transit? That's going to end up being hubs for people to sleep and live in, right? You're going to see the underground stations. You're going to see those subway trains. You're going to see those areas filled with homeless. Not that you don't now. You're going to see more of them.
Increase. Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. If you literally take around, and then at that point, when you get that many people in a confined area, now you're going to end up having crime. Because you might not have shit, but you might have more than me, and I want that. Right?
Yeah. We're talking about
So
basic
we're
necessities.
literally talking about what could actually become a real life Gotham City. Now, ironically, this guy said, I want to run on all these programs, right? We'll get the funding for it, etc. He gets elected. As soon as he gets elected, I'm talking, what was it like? It was a joke for a while that was going through social media. 24 to 48 hours, he runs an ad campaign asking for people to donate. He needs $4 million. So you tell people, we have this covered. This is what we're going to put in place. We don't need any of this because it's going to work out. Oh, sorry, I get elected and now I need your $4 million. I want people to understand that this is why Oregon is the way Oregon is. We remember what happened back in 2020 with Oregon. The decriminalization of all drugs.
Yes, I do remember that.
So now what do you have in Oregon? You have crime-ridden. It's crazy out in Oregon. In fact, the Supreme Court, as of today, announced that the ICE agents in Oregon can be protected, right? And not just that, to be protected, now Trump has the authority of sending in the National Guard.
Wow.
So it's going to get real in Oregon. It already got real over in Memphis. And those people, the residents, loved it. It got real in D.C. Those residents love it, right? Who doesn't love it? The ones that say, we don't want government control. but yet who's voting for the socialist people? This is why I want people to understand, with political affiliation, it's better to be an independent, such as myself, because I can see both sides to things, but I can also see the bullshit that's given. How can you sit here and say one thing and go back and do it different? It makes zero sense, right? So what I was going to say as far as the news for Wall Street, back in February, when it was projected that Mamdani was going to win, what was it, back in September? What did Wall Street do?
Guys, if you have not been paying attention, number one, Wall Street been popping up in other cities, okay? And those primarily being Florida and Texas.
Wall Street had officially requested for a change of address, moving to Texas.
Yep. So we have exchanges popping up in Texas arena, and there's also exchange now in Florida.
Yep. You'll see
Irony?
it in both areas.
I don't think so, guys. Where was the other spot?
Oh, what's that?
There's a third location?
No. But I'm saying
Okay.
both of those two spots. Those are the main, because taxes. They're a perfect example. Texas and Florida is a perfect example of what it's going to be like if you remove taxes from everything. So, like, it puts more money back in our pockets, period. Right?
Yeah.
We pay the tax for a product because that business has to pay for a tax. But other than that, that'd be it. What is so bad about that? Like, it's ironic to me that people scream for less government control, but allow the government to control everything. Like, that's just mind-blowing to me, right? So,
Well, there's certain things that fall under the necessity umbrella that the average man does not want to think about having to deal with. You know what I mean? And that's where they want that government to come in and cover them and cuddle them and coddle them through those issues, so they don't have to take the brunt on as an independent person to take care of those issues.
What does that sound like? Real quick, I don't mean to cut you off, but what does that sound like?
I have something truly special to share with you today. Have you ever dreamt of financial success and didn't know where to start? Look no further than Independent Trading University. At ITU, we offer a diverse range of courses, from Forex basics to advanced technicals, along with comprehensive fundamentals education, mindset coaching, health and wellness guidance, plus stock and crypto trading strategies. That's right. Everything you need for a well-rounded trading journey, all in one place. Our mission is clear, helping you make extra income by learning the art of trading. Join us today at solo.to/independent-trading-guru and take advantage of an exclusive pre-sale. $50 for undergrad students looking to trade part-time, and just $75 for career traders ready to dive in full-time. With ITU, you'll master the art of making consistent income from the markets. This is your chance to start building a brighter financial future. Are you ready to transform your trading game and take control of your financial future? Look no further than Independent Trading University, your one-stop destination for comprehensive Forex education and so much more. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced trader, we've got you covered. We believe in a holistic approach to trading success. Gain a deep understanding of market fundamentals, master your mindset, and prioritize your well-being. We're here to support your growth every step of the way. And let's not forget about stocks and crypto. Discover exciting opportunities and learn strategies to make extra income. The best part? We're running a limited time pre-sale for new students. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to gain the skills, knowledge, and support you need to succeed. Ready to make connections with your financial future? Visit our website at solo.to/independent-trading-guru to secure your spot in our pre-sale today. Independent Trading University, where trading dreams become reality. It's time to start your journey to financial freedom. Don't wait. Visit solo.to/independent-trading-guru now.
That's giving up your independence, your right toward, taking care of a situation.
And what does that do? It throws it back to a parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
You want to treat the
Yeah.
government like daddy, go right ahead. Not me. I'm over 18. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like we sit here, we're
Like I
like
said, I'd figure it out.
we're excited. We're excited at 18 to be able to move out of the house, create our own independence. But yet the first thing we want to do is cry on the government's shoulders.
Yep.
The government isn't supposed to control these things, guys. Like they're supposed to regulate them and certain plans, but it's not supposed to control. Like what are we talking about here? The government, just like people say defund the police, this, that, and the other because they don't like police. You know, if there were no police in these streets, everything would be chaos for one, right? Two, like people use the phrase, I pay your salary, right? I pay your salary. You are a servant to this community. Well, so are all these senators and House representatives and the president. They're civil servants.
Right.
Granted, they're earning salary, but they're not supposed to be the ones that put you in timeout like they did for 2 months here. So, like, what are we talking about here? It's weird. Like, I would love if people just actually self-reflected on what they understand as political affiliation and what each party represents.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And the importance of having an independent mind within that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And understanding. If you understand that, I think if people actually sat down and did that, we would have more of a closer community between humans, period, Americans. But we would understand at that point. I mean, I would go as far as to say, damn, this shit just zoomed in on me.
It gave you the spotlight right there.
Yeah.
It was ready for the hard-hitting point.
I feel like some of the misconceptions that go on in this country based on political affiliation can be tossed in the trash at that point, right?
Yeah.
Kind of going back with our original topic that we were talking about, like just kind of introducing context and whatnot, was based on race, right? Now we sit here and we talk about and we hear left and right, Donald Trump's a racist, Donald Trump's a racist. Republicans are racist, or all racist white men, right? Well, it was Republicans. It was a Republican that freed the slaves, right? Abraham Lincoln, he's a Republican. It was the Republican side that fought the Civil War against slavery. Like, how can you sit here and say that? Now, on a side note, I will say, I don't know, I think we talked about this on Discord, or at least I posted it there. I've always been one that I've said, like, I need to see in-depth racism from Donald Trump's position for me to actually feel that way. Like, I'm not saying I support him as a human being, because he's said and he's done some despicable shit. I do support him as a leader in this because he's the only one that has had the balls to do these things, right? Push the government the way that it has, make these changes, because a lot of these things need to be changed anyway. So, but it doesn't necessarily matter because I don't vote, right? But my political view isn't independent because I can see both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I did get a dose of racism just the other day. I think it's a very, very bad look, and this is minimal on the, as far as the actual topic, minimal on the news and market updates or anything like that. But does it kind of show a different side? It does. I hate it. So in some of these national parks, Yellowstone, right, you could get in free on certain holidays. MLK Day and Juneteenth were removed from that list. Mm-hmm. So now if you want to go to Yellowstone Park and, see if you can go find Yogi and Boo Boo, you got to pay. You got to pay no matter what. There was one date that was added as one of these free dates, and it was Donald Trump's birthday. So now
Stuff
here's
like
the
stuff like that.
right. So then that fuels into the
Yeah.
like if I brought this up in conversation, somebody would have been like, "Oh well, I told you he was racist." Well, prior to that, like they're understanding context for certain things. Things could have been taken one way or the other. He plays the game very well. Now, I'm not saying he's not, because he more than likely is. But we can't be necessarily concerned for that when he's leading 330 million people. He's, no matter what, he still has to have the best interest at heart for this country, period.
Well, I find something very interesting, and Russian President Putin had a point which I just thought was a little odd. He said that Europe, and you can elaborate a little bit there as far as what's happening with Europe, but Europe and Russia are kind of not seeing eye to eye in recent times. And Putin believes that Europe's only goal is to prevent Trump from achieving peace through negotiations, which we're seeing something that not every individual that would have been in the hot seat like Trump is would be able to go to the places and shake the hands of the individuals that he's been shaking the hands with recently to have negotiations to bridge what seems to be some sort of peace and way we can broker a deal, of course, to work with each other in a good economic standpoint from China, from Russia, from India, as well as a lot of our allies as well. But now it seems like there's something happening with Europe where it's not okay, which is odd, right? It's because you start to look at things from like, hey, Trump's doing good out there, and you have people that just thinks everything's as awful as it seems to be. It's simple as minuscule as the national parks. But now we're seeing on a grander scale, on a macro scale, right, where he's doing positive things with other countries, but then Europe's involvement starts to get a little rocky. So one, my question is, what is happening with Europe as far as having a problem with these peace deals that Trump's supposedly brokering to this day?
So now, I mean, I would challenge anybody to, dive deep into the research, because there's a lot that goes on. Like, I don't know if you've seen what's been going on over in England. Great Britain they were for like 2-3 months straight. It was people in the streets protesting left and right? You have a lot of the ideologies that are being put into our context here in America now over there. For example, they're fighting for gun rights. Now, the liberal side on our side here is that guns kill people, right? A shoot up at a school happens. What's the first thing you see on any form of news media?
It's the guns.
We need gun control. We need gun control. We need gun control. We need gun control. No, we don't need gun control in the sense of what England has, because these guys literally it was feared that it was going to happen here because of the way Biden and Kamala Harris were going to be progressing should she have been elected president. In England, they actually took to the streets, and their authorities, what you'd say the police, went door to door and took everybody's guns. That's what was going to happen here eventually at some point, because that's the liberal democratic view, is gun control is take it away from everybody. That's not what the Second Amendment does. The Second Amendment allows you the right to bear arms, right?
Right. Correct.
Now, is everybody in the right state of mind to own a gun? No. I will be the first one to say that. Especially when you see a drastic rise in mental health problems, right? Then yeah, maybe there should be extensive requirements. So I'm saying guns should still be allowed. Guns should still be owned, right? But do we have enough background check? Do we have enough extensive information given on these individuals that say, okay, well, no, you probably shouldn't own one, right? I think that can be looked at and viewed. So as a compromise between the two, still keep them. We're not getting rid of them. But what can we do to make it a little harder to get one based upon the individual themselves, right?
Mhm.
But you see people that are pushing back because over here, it's a lot of things are being pushed and changed. So you see a lot of people in the streets protesting over in England for these things, right? Like it's crazy. Like England was crazy for a few weeks there. Like it was left and right riots. Like it was almost like George Floyd type stuff out here. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah.
So I also believe when we're talking about Europe in general, I also believe that this goes for the support of the Ukraine, right? We know Donald Trump's position on it. It's not that he doesn't want peace. He wants peace between them, between the Ukraine and Russia. And he's gone to drastic positions to say, if I need to enact anything on Putin, if he pushes my buttons, then I will have no fear to do so, right? But he also feels that what was being done was wrong, which we all can agree because it was used as an excuse to funnel money. You know, $100 billion here, $60 billion here, right? Just let me send artillery over there. Let me send cash over there. Let me support your war, right? And that's not the case because nobody helps us when we need it, period. And in fact, when you want to talk about Europe, let's talk about France for a second. The best thing France ever gave us right now is Victor Wembanyama. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
whenever
That's
we've
what's
had a
up.
conflict, because of agreements that have been done based in the past, France always sides with the U.S., but they've never really been a help. That's like you going against a bully, but you get your little sister to fight with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll go as far as that. Like, you were in the
What a way to
military.
put it. Way to put it.
You were in the military, so I'm sure that there's probably things that you probably know or understand a little bit better than I do when it comes to those things. But based on alliances, France has not really ever done anything for us. So what I feel like is that when it comes to these things, they look at and they fall into the emotional side as well. And it's just, let's try and get everybody as much as possible to hate Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump could actually, like, I hate to say it, but if these things ever go into play, if he didn't have the pushback that he has, the whole world would be different. Why? Because we're tariffing this, that, and the other. Certain agreements would be then dissolved. Like, he's not a fan of NATO at all, right? And if people understood what NATO is, which, yes, it's a band of countries, but why was it formed? It was formed as a collective. I want to say it was to fight the USSR? I want to say, like, it was just a bunch of countries that banded together, and there was an agreement between all of them. Oh no, it was for World War II. It was for World War II. That's what it was for. So
And they're slowing down. I mean, you're right in the first instance too. They were slowing down Soviet expansion. So Russia's move to try to take over that kind of halted that
right.
as well.
So I think that came after the World War II thing. So like the whole thing is that NATO after World War II was supposed to be completely dismantled, and it never was. But what's the one thing that you hear from Trump when it comes to NATO? We pay into being in there. All these other countries don't, right? They don't pay what we pay. Like, everybody has to pay their fair share to be a part of this so they can support everybody, right?
Right.
Now, of all those countries that are part of NATO, there's one that is not. Do we know which one that is?
Russia?
It's the Ukraine.
Oh, really? I didn't know Ukraine wasn't part of NATO.
Yeah, Ukraine is not part of NATO, but Ukraine wants the support of all the surrounding countries, which are part of NATO. So because of that, that's why they feel America needs to be involved in this whole conflict.
Ukraine conflict, yeah.
And that's not right. It's not right. It's not our thing to do. You know, right? It's not, I hate to say it, it's not our problem. And the reason why I feel comfortable saying that is because when there's a problem going over here, what's the first thing all those other countries say? It's not our problem. They can figure
Your problem.
So guess what? You can have a
Like
dose of your own medicine right back at you. So it's been known. Trump is not a fan of NATO. Trump is not a fan of a lot of shit when it comes to a lot of the way that the rest of the world has treated America. So guess what? You start making changes, people are going to hate you. People are going to hate you, right?
Yeah.
So guess what? We're just at that point right now where, you know, now Europe is spilling over into it, but it's for multiple reasons. Those are probably like high level reasons. There's probably other deeper reasons, government wise, political wise, that I may not be aware of, but you can just see the pattern everywhere. Like if they took, it's funny because this man got so many votes and so much support, but yet all we hear about is the hate for him. That's all we hear about is the hate. I hate Donald Trump.
Somebody don't hate him. Somebody not hating him.
So you know,
well,
it's interesting that that it's going the way that it is. The funny thing is, we still got 3 years left of this. This is all within the first year.
First year, and it's been action packed. Now, with that type of stuff going on with Europe, and I mean the constant battles, the removal of guns, well, should we start to see as far as a reflection into the charts now with Euro USD, right? Should we start to see Euro start to have some descent, right, and more bearish activity in these types of times?
No, you're actually probably going to see a bullish move for the euro, which makes sense because what have we been seeing collectively over the past year? If I'm not mistaken, if I pulled up Euro USD, we'd see EU on a bull run, right? Because the US dollar has declined. And why has it declined though? Let's like talking about that, with it being based on supply and demand, right? We have more of a supply because we have an excess of money coming into this country that we didn't have prior to this administration. The tariff money, right? We're still working on a lot of the jobs and the wages and whatnot, but as far as just general money in principle, there's more money coming into this country as a whole, which allows the US dollar, although the US dollar is weakening at the same time globally. So, you know, it's kind of the reason why it's weakening is we're now almost like in a deflational period because we were so high in inflation. So money's not, you know, money's starting to kind of come out again. So we've seen a drastic drop on the US dollar. Now, what we may see, in fact, I saw this as a notification on my phone, is that the ECB, the European Central Bank, in 2026 is expected to start raising their interest rates. So that speaks volumes to a point. Like there's always that teeter-totter balance. Like, okay, is it in favor of the lender or the owner, right, of whatever loan it is? Mortgage rates, HELOCs, home equity lines of credit, credit cards, anything that deals with credit or anything with an interest rate. Yeah, it's kind of a back and forth to where right now when we see interest rates threatening to go up, like for us, we used it in 2020 as a way to battle inflation. Inflation probably could be going up a little bit and used towards that, but I also feel like it's a lot of things have been in the public's favor to where now the lender needs to start getting paid. Because what happens as soon as you start making money, right? And when you're discounting something, you have to bring prices back up regardless, right? To whatever they were before. So the economy was reshaping over there and in those countries that are affected by the ECB. So at this point, it's like, okay, now it needs to flop. This is where market cycles come into play. So we might see a drop on the euro at some point, but on a high level, it could just like on the monthly chart, right? If you're looking from the high level that we use, it's probably just going to be a pullback, right? But that thing could last, when you're talking about the month, it could last 3 or 4 months, 5 months, or whatever it may be. So it's going to be interesting because over on this side of the pond, we have rates coming down, right? So there's multiple reasons for that. But I do see, as far as euro coming, I do possibly see like some form of a pullback. I don't necessarily see it going completely bearish because our dollar is probably going to continue to fall at some point unless we see an actual war come into play, or if inflation needs to come back into play, they'll raise rates and drive it all the way up again, supply and demand. Higher supply when it comes down, higher demand when the US dollar goes up, which means when it's higher demand, there's less money floating around. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. During that government shutdown, I wanted to touch on that for a second. We had an interest rate drop, a federal interest rate. I'm not talking about necessarily property interest rates or, mortgage loans or stuff like that for homes, but the Fed rate, which usually drives everything. It was 1/4 basis point. Now, I think we have one tomorrow, actually.
Yes.
And it is, I think, what did the notification say? It was 95% expected to drop 1/4 basis point. I'm 100% it's going to drop 1/4 basis point.
Yeah, that was the prediction.
Yeah. So the unfortunate side is that in the mix of all this, you could have looked at a chart and you would have never even known that the interest rates were even talked about because it didn't have any impact on the market itself. It's not, the government was shut down for one. And just to clarify, this goes to show you how far the Fed is a government institution. The Fed still did their job while the government was shut down. What does that tell you? The Fed is an independent business. Guys, it's an independent business. So they charge the government for money. But the Fed was still able to come out and say, hey, we're going to drop rates. Thanks, Jerome Powell. Drop it 1/4 basis point. So, or 1/4 percent. So 25 basis points. So the first one that they had, which was, I think, September, it went down 0.5%, 50 basis points. So now we're looking at, we're going to come down to 3.75 as of tomorrow, after tomorrow, which is finally a full percent, 100 basis points down off of 3 different meetings, Fed meetings. I've said it multiple times, and we've had that conversation. It should have been 100 basis points back in September. Because if that drops, usually everything else falls in succession. So if the Fed drops, mortgage rates drop. Now, the Fed dropped, but mortgage rates had just dropped like 2 weeks before that, fairly drastically, which is encouraging people to buy homes, right? When mortgage rates drop, go buy a home. It's not where it needs to be, but still, any drop is a good drop. Still saving thousands of dollars. Now, when you do another 1/4%, although during the government shutdown, it didn't affect the mortgage rates again. This one very well could, because we've gone 3 months without having any effect, and now we've got another one coming up. We might see a result where mortgage rates will drop a little bit further. So as you drop, the more you drop, the more drastically, like if the Fed would have dropped a whole percent back in September, we would have seen a drastic drop in mortgage rates. But we didn't. We saw a slight drop. Cool. Let's get people interested. What does that money? Well, what does that do? It just drives money back to the banks, period. They're just saying, okay, we'll give you a slight discount. But depending on kind of what happens here now, this also is throwing it out that Trump gets his $2,000 check for all of us. If you make under $100,000 a year, there's supposed to be a $2,000 check that was rumored to be coming out, not as a stimulus, but just because it's money that's come from the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Money back to the people, right? But Supreme Court apparently shut that down. Now, in my opinion, I don't see how that would be involved with inflation because it's not printed money. But there was a fear that inflation would actually start taking off again, which would force rates to go back up. But that's neither here nor there because the check got shut down. But we'll see what happens tomorrow, quarter of a basis point, and then we'll see what happens after that. This is going to be interesting because, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
in May, Powell's gone.
Official.
Yep. And Trump has elected his successor for Powell. I forgot her name. But this is going to be it's going to be used as an introduction as to what we can foresee with her. Now, with this lady being put, I want to say it's the lady. I know that's who he wanted in place to begin with because it was somebody who he heavily supported. And if he heavily supported it and he wanted the race to drop, she probably was going to drop him far. So if she plays nice, hey, we could see these things really, really come down in 2026. It'll be very interesting. But then you're going to see, because that higher supply, you are going to see the dollar drop. But what's going to happen with the dollar drops? You're going to start seeing indices do what? Which means put your money in the stock market, people. Put it in the stock market. Right now, you can't lose in the stock market. I mean, it's on a major pullback from a small time frame. Decent pullback on the higher time frames, but I mean, we're pushing 50K on the Dow. You know,
they're looking up from an industry standpoint, that's for sure.
It is not looking up from a crypto standpoint, though.
No. But I will say that crypto looks like it's in a crucial position currently. So based a lot on what happens, with what they have on the horizon for December and all the other news going on with crypto, if it's going to be a bullish opportunity, it will build somewhere in the area we're in right now, especially as far as Bitcoin is concerned. Because I'm finding a nice support level where we are, but below that, man, it's looking like a ton for the downside if we don't hold this position.
Have you seen Sol?
I have not.
So Solana, which for those that aren't familiar, is one of the primary cryptos within the ISO system, including XRP, right? If you look at Sol on a weekly time frame, it is in a drastic, heavy head and shoulders, and just about to break the shoulder. So at one point, Sol was like over $200. If it goes down to where its head and shoulders started, it's at like $28. So for you crypto investors, I mean, between both views, right? So you've got Zay saying that if we hold support, it's to the moon for a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't hold support, which I don't think it will, you're going to start seeing all those prices come all the way down. So if you well, we had that conversation on XRP. I'll let people, you know what? If you want to see where XRP is going, join ITU. I got you. I'll tell you. If you want to see where, so I gave you Sol right now. And then, based on the pattern, if it wants to come to fruition, you just sell the value of it. Don't go buy it. Just sell the value of it, make your money, and then take that money and go buy it when it hits that support. But XRP has a drastic drop that it could happen. In fact, it broke at one point. The first major one I'm looking at is $1.72, but there's another price that I'm looking at for before I go crazy to buy. Like I said, join IT, we'll go over it. Bitcoin is going to recover, of course, everything, but
In 2026, traders cannot afford to sit on the sidelines. This is the year of the action takers, the year you make a decision that changes everything. At Independent Trading University, we build an experience that brings together what traders have been missing for years. Mindset that keeps you stable, economics that keep you informed, technical precision that gives you direction. One complete system, one community, one path to independence. From January 14th to 18th, ITU Rise 2026 will take you through 5 powerful days of coaching, clarity, and next-level growth. This is your chance to level up with your coaches live, build your personal trading plan, and finally break the habits holding you back. General admission is free. VIP access is optional for those ready to go deeper. VIP $27 admission includes morning motivation with Daniel, pre-session Q&A 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, recording access for 7 days. Enjoy 7-day enrollment to ITU. Part of admission will be donated to the Grace Works program. Receive a discount on the ITU 30-day bootcamp. Digital copy of ITU Trading Guide $4,000 worth of value for $27. Whatever path you choose, one thing is certain. If you want 2026 to be different, this is where it starts. Register now at rise.myitu.org. ITU Rise 2026, the year of the action takers.
that's going to strictly be because it is the cheese that stands alone. It's what crypto is based off of. So, like if you want an opportunity, and we've said this before, if you want an opportunity to buy Bitcoin at $1 again, like it was, it's not going to be Bitcoin that you're going to buy. It's going to be some of these guys that are in ISO. But if you want that opportunity, it could be coming.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And you already know we're going to get into all those price points as we close out the year and get into this next year coming up. So it's going to be very important just being aware of where those movements are happening, especially if you're heavily invested. Because if you have a position that's in a spot where you're going to get in a tear, sometimes it's okay to just take the money off the table and come back in a better position later down the road than to drag it out. But so lastly, last topic we'll get into, which I think is very, very important, or could be throwing some of those traders out there out of whack, is in the last few months, even now recently, we're seeing NFP happening at different dates within the month, right? So this is starting to become odd for those that typically pre-plan, like, hey, look, this first week of NFP, I'm not going to trade, or I'm only going to trade the first few days. But now I've got a deeper time frame where NFP is going to come in, could shake things up for me. So what's happening with that? Why is it happening? And how do we change perspective to align our trading, with these new NFP dates?
So it's not going to last forever. This only happened because of the government shutdown. So the government shut down on October 1st, which was literally right before September's report coming out in October. And it was shut down through November. So you also missed October's. So when it was randomly announced, when the government reopened, it was because it needed to bring these numbers out because it was already 2 of them behind. So you don't want I would assume due to market volatility, they don't want to do 3 of them in a row. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it was so close within a couple of weeks of NFP for what they, from when the government opened up to when the next one was going to come out for November and December. They pushed it till mid-December for November. So at some point, we're going to see it probably get back to where it was on every first Friday of the month, unless the Friday falls on the 1st or the 2nd. It usually defaults to the following week because the report necessarily isn't ready. But other than that, that's the only thing that's probably that would have changed it. But the specifically, this happened due to the shutdown because the government was not reporting anything. Nobody was there to do the report.
Yeah, right.
So, so the interesting thing though is that I think if I'm not mistaken, jobs actually increased, which actually was a positive report, which was good because we had so many layoffs. Now, the interesting thing about what could be coming here is part of the government reopening is that some of those agents that had lost their jobs are being rehired. So we could see in December or in January for December, we could see also an increase there, so we might see some positive NFP reports coming out. So yeah, I wouldn't be overly concerned for it. It's just crazy right now that we usually get the jobs report and then interest rates, where this month we're going to get interest rates tomorrow, where the following Tuesday is going to be a job report. So they still need to bring it out, but it's just probably more along the lines of like what's taking so long is actually gathering all the numbers for accuracy reasons. So not to say that that's even a thing, because we've seen the numbers come out on an NFP day and then 2 months later it's been reported that it was wrong, right? In actuality, it was this, and I would definitely challenge anybody who is curious about the economy and the job market itself. If you are one of those individuals that, I'm not going to say just directly are a liberal Democrat, but those that believe that the economy was in a good position under Biden, I need you to go look at what happened with all of his job reports. It actually turns out that there was over 1 million jobs lost in his term, rather than the positive that they claim after the 4 years. Now, the other thing is this that I want known. Anybody who doesn't know me that watches this, first thing I know is going to be in your mind is, oh, well, he's a Trump supporter. Oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. Like, I'm a conservative Republican. That's not the case. For me, it's exposing some of the things that were given to us as valid information that exposes the invalidity, right? So it's, unfortunately, the biggest thing that happened is Biden's term. Like, it'll be interesting if all these auto pen documents get completely reversed, which includes pardons, right? Now, ironically enough, again here, spur of the moment topic. You know who was pardoned by Biden?
Pharmaceuticals.
Dr. Fauci. So if the auto pen documents are then reversed because it was it was an illegitimate way of processing, because literally, if you know what the auto pen is, it literally just signs his name, right? And that man was incoherent most of the time, which we've seen on live television. And I don't want to sit here and bash the man himself, because he was voted in. But understand what was going on. Like, if if you get exposed as an individual to say, well, okay, maybe I was let's say this the phrase, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? So my point to all this is don't be fooled again. Like, just open your eyes and be open to listening and kind of like learning different sides. Like, it's always the quietest ones that you need to be concerned for. That's not a threatening thing. It's because the quiet ones in a conversation are the ones that are actually listening, right? So let's be real here. Be one of those quiet ones for a minute. Just shut the fuck up and listen for a minute, and then make an assessment afterwards, right? Understand the context. So here, I'll wrap all this up here real quick. Understand the sit down, open your ears, shut your mouth, try and understand context, have the conversation, and progress can be made. We're so worried about not being heard that it becomes insulting. And then when you insult me, my pride gets hurt. And then when my pride gets hurt, it leads to me being emotional about something, right? That's just a typical human being. Be different, guys. Be different. Let's get on a different scale here. Like, one thing that Daniel and I, when we had our conversations, when he helped me through some things, he said something that I will never, ever forget. He said, majority of people will listen to respond. They do not listen to understand. If people listen to understand, I think that people are probably more commonly driven. Like, look, we've got, we can find common grounds. We've got people that work a 9 to 5, right? Somebody doesn't want their money being taken for this. The other person says, no, you need to help this. Well, that person that says you need to help, do you understand why this person doesn't want money coming out of his check for something that isn't going to him? It's hard enough to live in these streets today. Like I said, have the conversation and listen. Don't listen to respond, because if you listen to respond, you're going to miss the context. And again, the theme of today, context. Try and look at it, because it's so important to understand that. Then make a valid, fair assessment.
It's very key, man. It's very key. And if you guys can sit down, and I think it's just important right now more than any, to understand that what you're doing, the organization you may be believing in, is not 100% perfect. So in even more sense, you should have the ability to separate, come with a willingness to understand. Yes, you want to be heard, you want your point to come across, but you also want to understand the point coming to you and not think either party is just grandiose better than the other, but they all play their place. And in some areas, they're doing very well, and many others, they may be doing very bad. But we cannot find that common ground if we are at each other's throat with organizations that at the end of the day, do they even care that much about you, right? As much as you're going to care about yourself and the person across from you. So be just cognizant of the situation you're in, the environment you're in, and the person in front of you, because we're all human, right? We're all trying to make it, we're all trying to figure this thing out and do things the right way. But if we can't find common ground, it's going to be very hard to support one another, celebrate each other, and be positive throughout all of this, But again, hey, look, for one, this has been a phenomenal episode, if you don't think so already. We've been able to take care of a lot of topics for you guys, a lot of perspectives. You guys got to blow up the comments, because we want to hear your insight. We want to hear your feedback on some of these different points that's happening, because it matters. And it's very important to understand, like we're saying, communication and context. Maybe you saw a viewpoint in this that you don't see a certain way, express it, show it, right? And give how you feel on that matter, so we can also see those other perspectives that are out there, and maybe tune in and talk about those in coming episodes, right? It's going to be very important as far as building community here. So Mike, thank you so much again for sharing your insight on the matters at hand. Um, if you're new to the channel, right, if it's your first time, this is what we do, right? Every quarter of the year, we're trying to get to you guys and give you that great information that's going to help you as a trader, help you as an individual, help you see the world a little bit broader, a little bit better. And as we come along, guys, we're closing out the year. This is it. You're in your last stretch, 2-3 weeks left of trading, if that, and you've worked your tail off this year. Maybe you've made the strides you wanted. Maybe you just hit a wall in your journey. So with that happening and us getting into this new year where you may come from a defeated place, you may be break even in life and you're just trying to take it up another leg, another notch. We've got ITU Rise coming up for January 2026, and we would love for you to be a part of it. It is a free event for you guys to come in, really pick our brains, really start to learn about how I can make trading work for me, how I can utilize these new funded resources that are coming out. Because there was a time a few years ago, me and Mike talked about it with you guys, that, yo, we thought the funded life was done. Like being able to do that and put money in your pocket in that realm, we thought that was over, but they've rerouted, they've reworked it for people to still be able to take advantage of that. There's still a lot of available positive brokers out there that are supporting you. And it's just a matter of you tuning into that skill set and really solidifying how you work in this industry, because it's a transition for everybody. You're going from the 9-to-5 life to be a trader. You might be a business owner trying to be a trader. You might be a doctor trying to be a trader. Whatever your environment is, there is space for you to utilize this skill, but maybe you've just been taught wrong to this point. And that's okay, because we can take you from where you are to where you want to be if you're willing to put that work in and really rise to the threshold of making your dreams become a reality in this niche we call trading. So if you are in that realm, go to rise.myitu.org, get your general admission ticket for free. If you want to join us for VIP, we've got some special perks for you guys as well. Mike will be there, Daniel will be there, I'll be there. Many other ITU students will be in the seats and available, and we're going to knock this thing out and get you guys started in the year right. So please feel free to reach out, sign up. Mike, thanks again for tapping in on another market update.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Most for sure, for sure. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do all the ITUTv stuff. You know how that goes. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.